tell me something. Have you ever had a project that just turned out to be way more work than you originally anticipated? Let me know about it in the comments, because I just spent like 20 hours making a 1 minute long video. Let's talk about it. I had a couple goals with this episode of Scenes. First, I wanted to dive more into Unreal Engine and into virtual production because there's just so much to explore there. And second, I wanted to start tying my older shorts together into one cohesive story. Let me explain that one a little bit. This whole series started with a couple proofs of concept. First, there was Project Redlam, then there was Dark Corners. Those turned out really, really well, I think. And then when I officially launched the series, we had The Vacation and The Storm. But anytime I launched one of these videos, every time I released one of these videos, inevitably I would get comments saying things like, you know, what happens next? Where's the sequel? People really wanted me to continue the story. So I figured I would do that with this episode of Scenes, but not for like one of the videos. I wanted to make this a continuation of kind of all of the shorts that I've created before. I want to tie in Project Redlam and Dark Corners and The Storm and The Vacation all into one 1 minute long video. Now, this meant a couple things. First, it meant that I was going to be taking all of the new stuff that I've been practicing in these other shorts and cramming them into one video and trying them all at once, which was a little scary. Also, it meant that I was going to have to try some new things in order to tell the story that I wanted to tell. I was going to have to fully comp myself into something that I created in Unreal Engine, and I was going to have to import animated 3D models into Unreal Engine. And we'll talk about that more a little bit later, but first let's talk about the actual production, which is, you know, production was production. It's the same gear that I always used. I got the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K with the EFS 17-55 f2.8 lens. I've got my Nanlite PavoTube 6C Mark IIs. You get the idea. Now, there were a couple new pieces of gear that I had never used before. First was a green screen, which we'll talk about later, and the other was the iPhone 13 Pro. Now, mostly I used this to control my Pocket 6K while I was filming because it's manual focus, and being able to just click a button and have it autofocus on me is super, super handy. And it takes a lot of the pressure off trying to make sure that I'm in focus. And I also use the phone to do a little bit of virtual production because I just recently learned that you can import the camera tracking data from Camtrack AR into Unreal Engine, which is super cool. Again, we'll go deeper into that later, but let's continue with production because I originally filmed everything inside of this studio. I mean, everything, all of the shots of me were filmed in this studio with no green screen because I didn't own a green screen at the time. And my plan was to just rotoscope myself into these compositions and it would all work out great. And it was going to be like the whole hook of this video. I was like, how cool would it be to film something in this tiny little space and have it translate into this massive world built in Unreal Engine? Like it was the whole hook, but it turned out to be like a really, really bad idea because, well, you can't tell because I've got lighting and a color grade and all of that stuff, but the walls in this office are like the same exact color of my skin, which makes it really hard to rotoscope. It doesn't make it hard to rotoscope, it makes it hard to track the rotoscopes. It was really, really difficult. I kept losing the track against the wall and I didn't have the patience to manually keyframe everything and just manually track it all. So I ended up spending some money on a green screen from Newer, and it came a couple days later and I just popped it open in my living room because the thing is way too big for this office. And I just refilmed everything using the green screen, which ended up working a lot better, but that's editing and we're still in production and we need to talk about the stuff that I did in Unreal Engine. There were a couple things that I needed to do in Unreal Engine. First were these POV scenes. Now I needed two of them. I needed one of me just looking around this scene in Unreal Engine, and I needed one with me looking around and then the monster catching my eye and me quickly looking back. So this also meant importing a 3D model, an animated 3D model into Unreal Engine, which was not as cut and dry as I would have hoped. The POV stuff was easy. I just literally stood right where I'm sitting now and I picked up my phone and popped open Camtrack AR and just filmed some POV stuff of me looking around and imported that into Unreal Engine, added it to a level sequence, and boom, I was done. I was able to export the sequence, and it was really, really easy. The 3D model took a little bit of work and a lot of YouTube tutorials. See, I got the 3D model from Mixamo along with the animations, and I downloaded them, but you can't just import the animated model into Unreal Engine. You need to import the skeleton and the mesh and the textures and the materials. You got to import that, and then you import the animation separately. I just didn't, it took me way too long to figure that out. Like I said, I had to watch a lot of YouTube tutorials. And then I had to figure out how to add those animated 3D models, this monster who's standing up and standing there and looking menacing and roaring. And I had to figure out how to add all of that stuff into a level sequence, which again, took a lot of YouTube tutorials. But once I got that figured out, I just needed to do a couple of sequences where there was no motion that I could use as a background for the shots that I'm in, and that part was easy. That part I knew how to do. But once I exported all that stuff, I brought it into DaVinci Resolve and it was time to edit. And the editing was actually fairly simple. I mean, it was pretty cut and dry. There's only a few shots in there, and I had spent enough time in pre-production to know exactly what I wanted and where these cuts were going to go and how long they were going to be. And I did end up swapping the order of a couple of the shots because I just felt like it flowed better that way. But other than that, it was super, super just drag and drop and you're done. And then it was on to Fusion, which was a little bit more complicated. I mean, I had done all of this stuff that you've seen in my other videos. I had done all this stuff before, but now it was time to kind of combine it into one composition. So you had me and I was being green screened, and that was, you know, that was fairly easy. The Delta keyer was really easy to use. The hardest part about that was figuring out how to do a proper garbage matte. And then there was a little bit of tracking and masking for the little, you know, blue energy flame thing around my hand. And there was some rain effects, and that was even easier than it was last time I did it because I just got Red Giant Universe and I was able to use the unmult effect to instantly get rid of that black background. It was fairly easy. I ended up using Red Giant's light wrap effect as well to help kind of blend me in with the Unreal Engine scene. The Fusion work was a lot. It was very taxing on the computer, but I got it done and I was able to figure it out, likely because I've spent so much time trying to figure out Fusion and figure out a way that I can work with it. I just made a video about that. You should go check that out. There were a couple finishing touches that I was particularly proud of. First of all, I ended up doing a glow effect on me inside of the compositions to kind of match it up with the lightning strikes to make it look a little bit more natural. I also ended up adding a handheld effect to any of the static shots for the same purpose. And I did an overall grade on the entire sequence to kind of match everything up and make it look real. I'm still working on the whole photorealism stuff, but I think that this is probably the closest that I've ever done, and it actually, it looks a lot better than I thought it would, to be honest. Now, just like in the last episode of Scenes, in The Vacation, there was zero dialogue in this, so I really was relying on sound design to tell the story. I ended up spending a lot of time in the Fairlight page timing up these lightning strikes with the thunder sound effect, which I know is not scientifically correct, but when it comes to video, it's kind of the way you got to do it. It's actually how they do gunshots in the movies. You don't normally in real life, the sound would actually come after the shot, not at the same time. But in the movies, they line them up because it just works better. So that's what I ended up doing with these lightning strikes. I also added some like hurricane wind and pouring rain and some background thunder stuff and rolling thunder and just making it sound as menacing as possible. And if you're wondering where I got all of the sound effects and all of the music for this short, well, then you must be new to the channel, because anybody who's been watching this channel recently knows that I get all of my music and sound effects from today's sponsor, Artlist. Artlist has a huge library of high quality music and sound effects that you can use in your videos. And it's really easy to find with their super detailed filtering system. So when I was looking for all the thunder and the storm and the wind and all of those sound effects, it actually went really quick. But the best part about Artlist is easily their unlimited license. You can use their music and sound effects on YouTube, on social media, in film and television, on platforms that don't even exist yet. You're just covered. Artlist will be linked below if you want to check them out, and if you sign up using that link, you'll actually get 2 months free on top of your annual subscription. There's no coupon code or no special link or anything. Just click the link below, sign up, get your 2 free months. It's a really good deal. Thanks so much to Artlist for sponsoring this video, and with all of that out of the way, without further ado, please enjoy The Vacation Part 2.